I watched from my car as they laughed inside, warm and full. My grandson stood outside their door shivering, holding the pie I baked. And not a single one of them let him in. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. I should have driven away the moment I saw their cars parked perfectly in the driveway, but I didn't. I sat there, engine off, hands cold on the steering wheel. Eli was beside me, bouncing his little legs like he always did when he was nervous. The pie sat in his lap. Apple cinnamon, his favorite. "Should I knock again, Grandpa?" I didn't answer. My eyes were fixed on the window. I could see Kelsey setting the table. Her gold bracelet caught the light every time she waved her hand at Daniel, who was carving the turkey like he was king of something. Eli stepped out before I could stop him. He hugged the pie against his chest, careful not to drop it. Walked up to the door with that stiff bravery only kids carry. He knocked twice, waited, then knocked again. Inside, no movement. But I saw them glance. I swear I saw it. Kelsey whisper something. Daniel shake his head. I stepped out of the car. The wind bit through my jacket, but I didn't feel it. My eyes were locked on my grandson. His ears were turning red. His fingers were gripping the tin foil so tight, the edges were digging into his skin. Still no one opened the door. 10 minutes passed. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Kelsey. "We needed space today, hope you understand." Understand? I walked up to Eli. He didn't look at me, just kept staring at the door. "Maybe they didn't hear," he whispered. They heard. We stood there a few seconds longer. No one came. No footsteps. No creak of the door. I took the pie from his hands, placed it gently on the doormat. Let's go," I said. He didn't protest, just followed me back to the car, cheeks raw from the cold. But that wasn't the part that broke me. What broke me was how he didn't ask why. He just sat there, silent, accepting. I gripped the steering wheel again. Harder this time, hard enough to feel my knuckles burn. As we drove away, he looked back once. Not for long, just a quick glance, the kind a kid gives when he realizes something's not coming back. They didn't even open the door after we left. When I checked the side mirror, the pie was still sitting there, steaming in the November air like it was guilty of something. I didn't talk on the drive back. Neither did Eli. He fell asleep holding my glove in his hand. And I started to rewrite everything. Not on paper, not yet. But in my head, every birthday I paid for, every hospital bill I covered, every check I signed because Daniel just needed a little help, every goddamn time I swallowed my pride so they wouldn't feel uncomfortable around an old man in their perfect little world. All of it, I replayed in silence. I didn't raise a son. I raised an opportunist. And I let it happen. I don't know what hurt more, his coldness, or my willingness to accept it for so long. But that day, sitting in that cold car, my grandson's small fingers wrapped around mine like I was the only thing keeping him warm, that was the last time I played by their rules. I used to think love looked like sacrifice. That if you paid for the roof over their heads, covered their tuition, helped with the mortgage when they were drowning, you'd earned your place. I thought that made me safe. I was wrong. When Ruth died, they started pulling away. I figured it was the grief. People grieve different. Some get quiet, some get cruel. I never expected my own son to become a stranger in the house I helped him buy. The change wasn't loud. That's what made it dangerous. At first, it was small things. Phone calls went unanswered. Invitations to dinner became, "We're busy." Holidays turned into texts. Short ones. The kind you send to coworkers, not family. Then came the jabs. Kelsey said it once while stirring tea in my kitchen. My kitchen, I had stopped by unannounced with groceries for Eli. Thought it might help them out. She didn't thank me. "You, Seb, had your time," she said. "Let the new generation build now." I smiled, said nothing. but my hands were shaking while I bagged up the carrots. It didn't hit me all at once. It never does. It's like a leak in the ceiling. You don't notice it until the damage is already done. Every milestone in Daniel's life, I paid for it. His college, his first car, his wedding ring. I didn't keep receipts, not because I forgot, but because I believed it was love. That's what fathers do, right? But one afternoon changed everything. I had gone over to drop off a book Eli had left at my place, his math workbook. He liked when I helped with the puzzles in the back. Kelsey was in the living room. She didn't hear me come in. Her voice was sharp, too sharp for a child to hear. He once said say no if you bring Eli. Stop asking him yourself. I froze in the hallway. I didn't want to be that man, the eavesdropper, the paranoid old fool. But then I heard Daniel. He seps getting suspicious. Kelsey laughed. Then stop using your voice, use his. And just like that, the last illusion I had left snapped in half. I was never welcome. I was useful. They didn't bring Eli to see me because he missed me. They brought him because I'd opened my wallet faster with those little hands in mine. They had weaponized my grandson. I left the book on the table and walked out. Quietly. But inside, I was burning. That night I sat at the kitchen table and looked through old documents. Bank transfers. Checks. Signed birthday cards stuffed with money. My handwriting stayed soft. Their gratitude grew colder with every year. Ruth had warned me once. They love you, but they separate growing into a version of love that looks more like expectation. I hadn't yet understood it then. I do now. The next week, Daniel called, asked how I was, said he missed me, asked if Eli could come stay the weekend. I said yes. I always said yes. He dropped him off Saturday morning, smiling, told me he was proud I was still so active for my age. I nodded, watched him drive off without looking back. That afternoon, Eli and I sat in the backyard. I watched him chase leaves with a plastic sword. He looked happy, free, safe. At one point he plopped down beside me, out of breath. Dad says you're the smartest man he knows, he said, brushing twigs off his jeans. I looked at him carefully. Did he say that? He nodded. He says you always figure stuff out, even when people try to trick you. I swallowed hard. Do you believe that? I asked. He shrugged. I do now. That answer stuck with me for days. They forgot I was watching. They thought old meant blind. But I had already started taking mental notes. The trust fund they thought was still in Daniel's name? Not anymore. The duplicate key I gave them for emergencies already changed the locks. And the bank accounts they assumed I'd leave untouched until death. Frozen, reassigned, protected. I started shifting the pieces. Not out of anger. Out of clarity. They had gambled on my silence. They bet that age meant softness, that my love for Eli would blind me from seeing the truth. But they forgot who taught him how to think. And I hadn't even started yet. I didn't send a warning. Didn't ask for a conversation. I just walked into the bank, handed over my ID, and removed Daniel's name from every account he thought he'd inherited early. The teller looked at me like I was making a mistake. She even asked twice, her voice dropping to a whisper. Are you sure, sir? Yes, I said. I said I'm very sure. That was the morning everything started to shift. I walked out of that building lighter, not happy, but clear. Like I had finally stopped waiting for an apology that was never going to come. They had crossed a line with Eli. That changed the game. For years I told myself I was keeping the peace for Ruth, for the family, for tradition. But peace is a lie, when only one side honors it. That afternoon I called Hopkins, my lawyer, same man who handled Ruth's estate. I need to rewrite my will, I said. He paused. Then, in that old dry voice of his, said, Been a long time since you sounded that certain. I didn't tell Daniel. Didn't tell Kelsey. Didn't tell anyone. But something strange happened within days. Kelsey started texting more. Hope you're doing well. Just thinking of you today. Then, let us know if you need anything. You're always welcome here. I didn't respond. Next came the invitation. Healy's got a school play next week. Thought you might like to come? I showed up, quiet, sat in the back, watched him play a tree. He waved at me when no one else was looking. After the play, Daniel walked over and patted my shoulder like we hadn't gone months without speaking. You look good, Dad. I nodded. You too. Kelsey hugged me. She hadn't done that in over 2 years. We should do dinner soon, she said. I just smiled. But I didn't say yes. They were circling. I could feel it. Something had tipped them off. They didn't know what I'd done, but they knew something was different. I didn't care. I started keeping receipts. Not the kind you throw in drawers. The other kind. Screenshots, text logs, dates and times. Every sudden burst of affection got saved. Every shift in tone got written down. They were building their own timeline. And I was building mine. Eli started coming over more. This time not because they dropped him off. He called me himself. Can I come stay this weekend? Of course, I said. He came with a small backpack and a chessboard. Said he wanted to learn how to beat me. We stayed up late Friday night. I showed him the Queen's Gambit. He kept forgetting which piece moved how, but he never stopped trying. Saturday I taught him how to cook eggs. Real eggs, not microwave ones. You crack it first, I said. Then you commit. He laughed when he got shell in the pan. I didn't yell. I just showed him how to fix it. We sat at the kitchen table with buttered toast and orange juice. He told me about school. Said his teacher thought he was too quiet. She says I don't raise my hand enough. He said, Do you know the answers? I asked. He nodded. Then, don't worry. The loudest ones usually know the least. He smiled at that. That night, while he slept on the pull-out couch, I sat at the dining table and pulled out the manila folder Hopkins had mailed me. Inside was the new will. Clean, clear, legally airtight. I read through it slowly. Everything was in Eli's name, held in trust until he turned 25. If anything happened to me, my lawyer would execute everything personally. No interference. Daniel and Kelsey were mentioned once. A single sentence. All prior verbal promises or expectations are hereby void. I signed it, dated it, and sealed the copy. Then I recorded a video, just me, in my kitchen, looking into the camera. Eli, I said, this is for you. One day you said'll understand why I did all this. It wasn't said it out of spite. It was out of love. I paused. I wanted to teach you something no one else bothered to, what it means to protect what matters quietly. I kept the recording short. Didn't want to cry. Didn't want to rant. Just wanted him to have proof that someone thought he was worth everything. I stored the video on 2 USB drives, one in my safe, one with Hopkins. I slept well that night. For the first time in a long time. They still had no idea what I had done, but they would. And when they did, there'd be nothing left to take. Ellie didn't know it yet, but he was the only one who deserved what I had left. The wood under my feet still creaked the same way it did 40 years ago. Back when Ruth and I laid the foundation with our bare hands, I remember her standing where the kitchen would be, pointing at nothing and saying, the table sep's going to go right here. I built that house board by board. I didn't hire crews. I took a loan, worked double shifts, and poured concrete with my own hands. Every scratch in the hallway, every paint chip on the stairs. It's my story carved into walls. Daniel didn't lift a finger. He was 8 when we moved in. He ran through those rooms like they were built just for him. Maybe that's where the idea started. The idea that it was his. He brought it up casually at first, during lunch. We've been thinking, he said. swirling his fork around a plate he didn't set cook. "It might make sense for you to transfer the house now. You know, for estate reasons." I didn't stat answer. He kept going. "We're not asking you to move out or anything. Just the paperwork. It helps us plan." I looked at him. Slowly. "And what exactly are you planning?" He didn't set answer. Kelsey jumped in instead. "It's not about taking anything. It's just easier to manage taxes. If the property sits under our name, a lot of families do it." I nodded. Took another bite of chicken. Swallowed hard. Then I stood up and walked away. I didn't owe them a reply. 2 weeks later I had Hopkins draft the trust. The house, as of that day, no longer belonged to me, but it damn sure didn't belong to Daniel either. It was placed under a private trust. The beneficiary, Eli. He wouldn't inherit it now. Not even at 18. Not until 25, after he'd lived enough life to know the difference between ownership and entitlement. I left one clause for emergencies. If something happened to me, Hopkins could manage it until Eli was ready. No one else. No transfers, no appeals, no backdoor signatures. It was done. I waited for them to find out. I didn't say a word. They found out when the mortgage company sent a notice, routine stuff, just updated paperwork. But Daniel wasn't listed anywhere. Kelsey noticed first. She called me that night, her voice shaking. "You moved the house." I said nothing. "You put it in a trust?" she snapped. I took a breath. "Yes." "Why would you do that? After everything we done for you?" I smiled. The kind of smile you earn after years of swallowing your tongue. "Exactly," I said. The line went silent for a moment. Then a long exhale. "You making a mistake," she whispered. "No, I some fixing one." Daniel showed up the next morning. Didn't knock. Just let himself in. He stood in the living room like he still owned the place. "You really did it?" "Yes." "You think this changes anything?" "It already has." He laughed bitterly. "You've lost your mind." "No," I said quietly. "I just stopped giving it away to people who never earned it." He stormed out without another word. I stood there for a long time after he left, staring at the dent in the wall where Eli once crashed his toy truck. I never patched it, never wanted to. That scar meant something. So did this one. But I hadn't even started yet. I heard the knock before I saw him. It was soft. Not hurried. Just 2 quiet taps on the door like someone who wasn't sure if they belonged. When I opened it, Eli stood there with a backpack slung over one shoulder and a nervous smile that didn't reach his eyes. "They think I am at Mason Sepsa's house," he said. I stepped aside. He walked in like he'd been holding his breath all day. Kicked off his shoes without a word, unzipped his backpack and pulled out a small stack of photos bound by a rubber band. "I found these in the basement," he said. He spread them out on the table. My wedding photo, a picture of me in uniform, medals pinned to my chest, a hospital photo of Daniel as a baby, Ruth smiling down at him with eyes full of sleep and pride. "I didn't know you were in the army," he whispered. I sat down across from him. My fingers hovered over the photos. "No one ever told you?" He shook his head. "They don't talk about you much," he said. "At home, I mean." He didn't say it like it was a complaint, more like a fact, like the weather. I took a breath. "Why do you think that is?" I asked. He looked down at the wedding photo, then at me. "I don't know. You seem normal." I laughed. Not out of joy, out of disbelief. "That's the first time anyone called me that." He was quiet. A moment longer. Then finally asked the question I'd been waiting for. "Why don't they talk about you?" I looked him in the eye. "Because I remind them what decency looks like." He blinked, like he didn't know if that was a joke or not. It wasn't set. We sat in silence for a long while. The kind of silence that isn't heavy, just necessary. He touched each photo gently, like he was afraid they'd disappear if he blinked too hard. "Was Grandma nice?" he asked. "She was the kindest person I ever met." "What happened?" I stared at the ring still on my finger. I never took it off. "She passed." "That's what happened." He nodded like he understood. But I knew he didn't set. Not really. We made grilled cheese sandwiches for dinner. He insisted on flipping them himself. Burned one side, I didn't care. "Don't tell Dad I used the stove," he grinned. "I once did," I said. "But I might tell the fire department." He laughed with his mouth full, crumbs everywhere. We watched an old western on the couch. I didn't ask if he liked it, he stayed the whole way through, so that was enough for me. Just before bed, he looked up at me and asked, "Am I like you?" I looked at him carefully. "I hope so." He didn't say anything back, but he reached for my hand and held it like he was anchoring himself. After he fell asleep, I stood in the doorway for a while just watching him breathe. That's when I knew. It wasn't sit about money anymore. It wasn't stat even about revenge. It was about legacy. That night, I called Hopkins again. Left a voicemail. "We need to finalize it," I said. "Everything goes to Eli." I recorded a new video too, shorter than the last. This time, I didn't explain anything. I just looked into the camera and said, "You were worth all of it. You still are." The next morning, I made him pancakes. He added too much syrup. I let him. As I dropped him off a block from his house, he looked back at me through the car window. He hesitated, then smiled and said it. Not out of habit, not out of obligation. "Bye, Grandpa." And that was the first time he called me that. Like it actually meant something. The envelope came a week before Thanksgiving. No return address, just my name printed on the front in that neat forced handwriting Kelsey uses when she wants to seem formal. Inside was an invitation. "Thanksgiving dinner at our home. 4 p.m. sharp. We sit'd love to have you." I read it twice, then slid it into the drawer with old electric bills and useless warranties. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't even throw it away. I already had other plans. They thought I'd forgotten what happened last year. How Ella and I stood outside that same door while they laughed over turkey. How they left my pie on the porch like some unwanted delivery. I hadn't forgotten. That was the year I stopped giving them access. This year, I gave the house keys to a quiet couple from Minnesota. Jennifer and Carl, young, kind, moved into the house through a short-term rental site. Hopkins helped arrange it. Every legal box was checked. It wasn't Daniel's house anymore. Not on paper. Not in practice. I told Jennifer they might show up. I didn't explain why. Just said if anyone knocks, don't open the door. Thanksgiving morning was quiet. I had coffee at my new place, far from the city. A small cabin with squeaky floors and a porch that faced nothing but pine trees. I turned off my phone around noon. By 4 I turned it back on. 10 missed calls. All from Daniel. Then, a text. What the hell is going on? I stared at the screen for a full minute before replying. "You needed space, remember?" No reply. I knew exactly what had happened. They showed up with their wine and fake smiles, walked up the driveway expecting the door to swing open like always, but it didn't. Instead, they found a stranger answering. Jennifer must have handled it well. She's calm like that. But that's when it really hit them. They didn't own anything anymore. Not the house, not the narrative, not me. I spent the rest of the evening watching old home videos back when Daniel still smiled like he meant it. When Ruth's voice filled the background calling out instructions over the sound of birthday candles being blown out. The screen blurred around the edges after a while. But I didn't stop watching. Some memories you visit even when they hurt. Especially when they hurt. Around 8, I got another message. From Kelsey this time. "Did you rent out our house?" No question mark. Just accusation disguised as confusion. I replied, with one word. Correction, my house. She called. I didn't set answer. Then another text. You self-humiliated us. I almost laughed. Because that was the moment I knew they cared more about being embarrassed than being cruel, more about appearances than what they did to Eli, what they did to me. There it was. Their anger had nothing to do with loss. Only exposure. They didn't cry when I stopped showing up. They didn't panic when the bank accounts changed. But now, when strangers were eating Thanksgiving dinner in what used to be their dining room, that was their breaking point. I got one more message before midnight. This one from Daniel. Don't do this. We can talk. I stared at it for a while. Then I wrote back. You had a year to talk. This was the quiet part. He didn't respond. But their fall wasn't finished yet. The letter came certified. Thick envelope, legal header. My full name typed in bold. Daniel was suing me. The claims: emotional distress, breach of family expectations, fraudulent withholding of inheritance. I didn't call him. I didn't respond to the letter. I just forwarded it to Hopkins and told him, we are going to court. And we did. The courtroom wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no slamming fists, just cold air, tired chairs, and the slow ticking of a wall clock that made every lie feel longer. Daniel sat across from me, clean-shaven, suited up like a man who thought wearing confidence would replace character. Kelsey sat beside him, lips tight, hands folded like she was the one being judged. The judge was a quiet woman in her 60s. Sharp eyes. No patience for theatrics. Hopkins stood first. Calm. Controlled. Your Honor, we have documented records of all account changes, deed transfers, and legal notices served well within the rights of my client. Daniel Sawyer stood next. A man too young to know what real family betrayal looks like. He tried to paint me as manipulative, said I took advantage of Daniel Sip's trust, said I blindsided them with financial decisions that affected their life trajectory. Then came the moment. The judge turned to Daniel. Mr. Taylor, did your father ever legally gift you the house, accounts, or assets in question? Daniel paused, shifted, then said, no, but it was implied. He said things like, sub and all for the family. The judge raised an eyebrow. That's not how law works. Silence. Hopkins handed over a folder. Inside were printed texts, voicemails, my will, my trust documents, the timeline, everything. And one photo. Eli, holding that burned grilled cheese, smiling beside me in the kitchen. The judge looked at it for a second longer than I expected, then closed the folder. She didn't scold them, didn't call anyone a liar, just looked at Daniel and said, this case is dismissed with prejudice, meaning they couldn't try again. No appeal, no loophole. Daniel didn't look at me as he stood up. Kelsey did. Her eyes were empty. Not angry, not sad, just stunned. Like she'd built her whole life on an outcome she thought was guaranteed. But guarantees don't exist in betrayal. They walked out without a word. Just like I used to. But this time I wasn't the one left behind. They left the courtroom broken. Just like they left me. I sold the last piece of furniture on a Tuesday. The old recliner Ruth used to nap in after church. A college kid came to pick it up. He didn't ask any questions, just handed me the cash and said, thanks, man. I watched him drive away with it in the back of his truck, and that was it. The last physical thing that had her memory on it, gone. I didn't cry. Not because I didn't want to, but because the tears had dried up years ago, somewhere between Daniel's silence and Kelsey's polite cruelty. I kept only what I could carry. One duffel bag, some clothes, a small wooden box with old letters and Ruth's necklace inside. That was enough. Everything else, stocks, accounts, insurance, even the title to the car I no longer wanted. It was all locked away for Eli, protected, untouchable, until he turned 18. then 25. Hopkins handled the legal guardianship. I didn't trust the world to just hand things over when the time came, but I trusted him. I left one envelope behind, taped to the inside of the kitchen drawer, marked with Eli's name and nothing else. Inside was the letter. No explanations, no anger. Just a few sentences I'd rewritten a dozen times until they felt right. People will tell you stories about me. Some will be true, most one said. But this part is true. Every decision I made was for you. You deserved more than what they gave me, so I gave it to you instead. I signed it. And that was the end of it. No goodbyes. Not to Daniel, not to Kelsey, not even to Eli. He wouldn't understand yet, and I didn't want to burden him with one more complicated farewell. Some things are cleaner without closure. I left the keys on the counter. One for the house, one for the mailbox, one for the truck. Then I walked out. No ceremony, no long look back, just the door clicking shut behind me. I drove through the night. No destination, just distance. I stopped at a rest stop when the sun came up, bought a cup of weak coffee and stared at the map on my phone like it mattered. It didn't hit. I just needed to disappear long enough for the dust to settle. I knew they sit come looking. Not out of love. Out of panic. Daniel would panic when the accounts stayed frozen, when the mailbox stopped producing checks, when the silence stretched too long to ignore. Kelsey would spin her theories, blame Hopkins, blame the system, maybe even blame me for dying before I was dead. But they sat dead, never find me. Because I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I knew they said to come looking for money. It took them 2 years to find me. I knew it was coming. I just didn't know when. They showed up on a rainy Tuesday. Not dramatic. No storm. Just steady drizzle and wet gravel under worn-out tires. I opened the door slowly. There they were. Daniel looked older. Gaunt, suit too loose. Kelsey's hair was tied back, makeup smeared like she hadn't looked in a mirror before leaving the house. For a second, no one said anything. Then she whispered, "Hi." I didn't move. Daniel stepped forward. "We found your address through Hopkins. He said you wouldn't be happy." "He was right," I said. They didn't smile. Daniel exhaled. "I wouldn't be here if it wasn't serious." I nodded once. Then stepped back. Just enough to let them in out of the rain. Not enough to invite comfort, just enough to keep their shoes from soaking the floor. They sat at the small kitchen table. I stood. "We lost everything," Kelsey said. Daniel didn't look up, just kept wringing his hands. "Bankruptcy, job gone. Car repo we been staying in a motel." I stayed quiet. "The people we thought were friends," she trailed off. "Weren't said," I finished. She looked at me, eyes red. But I couldn't tell if it was regret or just exhaustion. Daniel finally spoke. Voice tight. "I made mistakes, Dad." That word stopped me for a second. "Not Frank. Not him." He said, "Dad." I kept my voice calm. "What do you need?" He looked up slowly, hesitant. "Anything. Just anything. To get us out of the hole." "I can give you food," I said. "You hungry?" They blinked. Kelsey almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because she thought I was joking. "I have soup, bread, coffee, no money." Silence. Then, she broke. Quiet, crying. Not loud, not performative. Just that kind of cry when someone finally realizes there's no performance left to give. Daniel kept staring at his hands. I poured the soup. 2 bowls, set them on the table. Neither of them touched it. "We didn't think it would end like this," he said. Neither did I. He looked up. "You really gave everything to Eli?" "Yes." He swallowed hard. "He's just a kid." "No," I said. He sits the only one who never tried to buy me with fake kindness. Kelsey spoke through her tears. We were scared. You were changing everything. We didn't set know what you were doing. No. You were scared I wouldn't set die in time to fund your lifestyle. Daniel stood up. Not in anger, just broken. He nodded. Then, quietly, I said, I'm sorry. I let that sit for a second. I believe you, I said. He looked confused. But that doesn't mean I owe you a second chance. He nodded again. As they walked to the door, Kelsey stopped. What do we tell Eli? I met her eyes for the first time since she walked in. Tell him I will see him when he steps ready. Not you. She didn't argue. Didn't plead. Just stepped outside. I closed the door behind them. Softly. No slam. No final word. But one thing did surprise me. As he walked down the path, Daniel turned back and said, "Thanks, Dad." And that was the first time they called me Dad without $signs behind it. There's a park not far from where I live now. Quiet. No playground. No benches carved with dedications. Just a gravel path and some stubborn trees that refuse to grow straight. I walk there most mornings. Same loop. Same pace. It helps me think. Not about what I lost. That part's done. I think about what I stopped carrying. What I finally put down after holding it too long. Some people think revenge feels like fireworks. It doesn't instead. It feels like closing a drawer that's been stuck for years. I didn't get joy out of what happened to Daniel and Kelsey. I didn't celebrate when the accounts froze, or when the door didn't open for them, or when their voices cracked asking for help. I just felt clean. Not happy. Just clean. They taught me how to disappear from their hearts. I just returned the favor with law and silence. I still think about Eli. Every day. Hopkins says he's doing well. Grades are solid. Polite kid. Quiet. Keeps to himself. That part worries me. Not because he's like me, but because I remember what it feels like to sit in a room full of people and still feel like you're in the wrong house. They'll try to rewrite history for him. I know that. They'll say I was cold, that I abandoned them, that I twisted everything at the end. That's why I left the letter. It's tucked inside a safety deposit box, with his name on it. He'll get access the day he turns 18. I wrote it like I was sitting across from him at the table. Just me, just him. I wanted him to hear my voice. Not a lawyer, not a judge, not someone else's bitterness dressed up as truth. I wrote, when they shut you out, remember, you come from someone who never gave up on you. Not once. Not when they used you. Not when they forgot me. Not when they tried to convince you that silence meant guilt. I told him where everything went. Why I chose the way I did. Why I never said goodbye. And I ended it with the one thing no one else ever told me growing up. You are allowed to outgrow people, even if they share your last name. The wind picked up in the park today. Carried leaves across the path like a warning, or maybe a reminder. I stopped walking for a minute. Let the cold bite into my fingertips. Felt the ache in my knees. The familiar one that never goes away. No matter how much you stretch, that ache used to remind me I was old. Now it reminds me I'm still here. I took out the photo from my jacket pocket. The one of Ruth in front of the old house. She's holding a pie, smirking like she knows something I don't. I keep it with me more now. Not because I miss her, though I do, but because she'd get it. She always understood quiet decisions better than loud declarations. I lit a small candle near the trail's edge, shielded the flame with my hand till it held. I did good, Ruth, I whispered. I finally stopped letting them use my silence. The flame danced once, then steadied. I turned away. Didn't wait for it to burn out. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.